Today we are going to be talking about two important items. One is abbreviations, and the other word we use are equivalents. So we are going to start with the first one, abbreviations, and show you some examples of what those abbreviations are and what they stand for. Let's say that we find a recipe, and this recipe is called honey whole wheat bread. And as you can see, we have the full word cups, but there is an abbreviation for cups. But then we come across this one with a lowercase t, sp period, which is teaspoon. And this pkg is an abbreviated form of the word package. Again, 1 cup, 1/4 cup, and then we have this one, which is 3 TBSP. Some recipes, this part, they do not write out cups, they just write down the letter C. It's a lot faster when a recipe is being read to you that you copy down the abbreviation. It's quicker, and some tools may not have the full name on the handles or printed inside the cups. In this sugar container, as you can tell, they have the letters QT. This is a dry measure, so this is saying it's 4 quarts. This one is saying it is 2 quarts. So QT is another name for quart. We have some measuring spoons here, and as you can see, they have both metric and they have both standard measurements on it. As you can see here, this one is 1 TBS. It has a capital T. It's the biggest spoon, as you can see, and this is a tablespoon. When we take a look at the green measuring spoons, we notice that it says TSP. Now in this case it's capitalized. Most of our equipment, it's a small lowercase t, standing for teaspoon. And as you can tell, this is one also 5 milliliters, which is metric. And if you look at both of these, you can see the size difference. Even though these are 1, this one is TBS, should be a P. This one is 1 small lowercase t SP. You don't want to get these confused. We can go down to 1/4 of a teaspoon or 1/2 of a teaspoon. As you can see, the 1/4 is a little bit smaller than the 1/2. On these measuring cups, we have the word written out. 1/4 cup, 1/3 cup, 1/2 cup, and 1 cup. On some measuring cups, it's just listed as a C, which means cup. We call this a nest of measuring cups because, like a bird's nest, one fits inside of the other. So the abbreviations I'm going to be giving you are very important to know. So we're going to start with the smallest measuring tool, which is on the measuring spoon set. A small lowercase t equals teaspoon. I would say always start with a small t so you're not confused and accidentally put down 1 tablespoon of salt instead of 1 teaspoon, let's say. This can also be spelled TSP period. Tablespoon, think of something that's large, table. It starts with a capital T, ABLESPOON. Sometimes it's capital T, B, S, P, or sometimes it's even a capital T. Cup, really should be written like a C. So we have teaspoon, tablespoon, and cup. For larger measurements for parties and for restaurants, we have other abbreviations too. We have the word quart, and as I showed you in the example, it is spelled QT. If you're making punch, let's say, you need 2 gallons of water. Of course, it's written like this, but it is GAL period. If you're baking something over a certain amount of time, minute is MIN. If it's hour, HR. Degrees Fahrenheit would be a little circle with an F next to it. Sometimes they'll say preheat the oven to 350 degrees and they'll have a little circle, which means the same thing. So those are the main measurements. There is one more that you will need to know, or really two more. One is OZ, which is ounce, and one is pint, or PT, period. So there we have it. Those are our abbreviations. Equivalence means that two parts equal maybe one part. An example is, how many quarts does it take to equal 1 gallon? Well, in elementary school we might have learned about this. There are 4 quarts that equal 1 gallon. That is an equivalent. You could measure out a quart container 4 times and put it into the punch bowl, or you can have a gallon measure and measure it out once. So it's a little bit simpler if you know your equivalents. Other equivalents that you need to know would be, how many teaspoons does it take to equal 1 tablespoon? And the answer to that is 3. 3 teaspoons equal 1 tablespoon. Now it gets really easy after this because we're going to start working now with tablespoons. We want to know how much or how many tablespoons equal 1/4 of a cup, 1/3 of a cup, 1/2 of a cup, 2/3 of a cup, and 3/4 of a cup, and also 1 cup. And I'm going to write the equivalents of how many tablespoons it takes to equal all of these. It takes, for 1/4 of a cup, 4 tablespoons. For 1/3 of a cup, it takes 5. Sometimes people go and say 5 and 2 teaspoons, but we'll just keep it at 5. 1/2 of a cup is 8. 2/3 of a cup is really easy because if you know that there's 5 and 1/3, you just double the amount and you have 10. Tablespoons equal 2/3. For 3/4, it would be taking this 1/4, we know there are 4 tablespoons, multiplying it by this number here, and 4 times 3 is 12. And the real simple one is the 1/2 cup. If you know that there is 8 tablespoons in a 1/2 cup, you just double the amount and it equals 16 tablespoons in 1 cup. So those are your equivalents that you will have to memorize in knowing how to increase a recipe, to double a recipe, or reduce a recipe. With that, I am going to be giving you a recipe online here that you will need to rewrite the abbreviations on in the ingredient list. And then I want you to, again, multiply the amounts of the ingredients by 2. Multiply by 2. If you have any questions at home with this or anywhere else, you can always go to YouTube and they give you really good suggestions on how to do this.